All right, so this video is going to be about doing responsive navigation. We're going to be making this navigation up here so that we see one of those like little icons, like the kinds that have like the three lines, and you click on it and then the menu shows up. So those are actually called hamburger menus because the three lines is supposed to look like a hamburger. Yeah, I don't like the term, I didn't make it up, but that's what the industry calls them. So it's going to be like one of those like little icons that you click on. This menu shows up. Then you can click away from the menu and it goes away. But of course, when we're in the desktop mode, there's no need to do that. You just simply show the menu. So that's what we're going to be making. We're going to do this all in CSS, no JavaScript. Let's see. There's a lot of ways to do this. I'm not saying that this is going to be like the best way. It just happens to be a way that I know how to do it. So no claim that this is like the best way to do it. Just showing you the way that you can do it if you wanted to go the all CSS route. All right, so we did another video just a few minutes ago, and you can see that one. It's called Responsive Design for Beginners, and this video kind of stems upon that. So what we did from that video is we made this navigation. Since I have moved it in this header area, and then we've got this main area below with kind of some fake content just to give us a little bit more context, make this feel a little bit more like a real website. Let's see, go up here and look at the CSS. One of the things I did from the last video is I just moved the background color of black out of the anchors individually and into the container, into the nav container itself. So really simple situation. We just have 4 anchors inside of a nav. Let's get going. All right, so the first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to position this navigation in the right spot, because right now it's a part of the flow, which means if I were to make it go away and then come back, all the content would be bouncing up and down as the navigation is like making a spot available for itself. So let's make it more or less hover over the content. Okay, so we're going to go here and we're going to say position. I could say position absolute, or I could say position fixed. If you want to know the details of the difference, you ought to head over to my other video. It's about absolute positioning. But we're going to say position fixed, and then we're going to say it's going to be left of 0 and top of 0. Okay, so what that means is we're going to fixate it. Oops, I didn't mean left, I meant right. Okay, so you can see now that it's more or less hovering over the content, and I'm just going to give it a min width of 200 pixels. Great. Okay, so now the next thing that we need to make is the actual little thing that you click on to make this thing show up. So let's go ahead and make that. We're going to head up over here to our HTML, and we're going to call this div. We'll call it menu on because it's going to turn the menu on. So make that. You can see that it showed up right here. All right, so we're going to, let's see, menu on background color. Okay, okay, so we're going to also want to probably copy some of this stuff we got going on here to put it over on the right hand side. Okay, so now we have 2 positioned things over on the right hand side. The reason why you can't see the menu on thing is because it's underneath this other thing. So we can use z index. We can do z index of 1000. Technically, z index, you can use any just regular number to say, this thing is on top of that thing. We're going to use 1000 only to indicate that that this stuff that we're doing is supposed to be above all other things, because you might have other absolute position things in your project, and we want to definitely make sure that our navigation system is higher than anything else. So normally I would set z indexes to be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, numbers that are single digit, but we're going to want to make sure that we're very high up and that nothing else is going to get on top of us. So just to show you right now, the menu on is at 1000 z index, and I'm going to go ahead and say that the z index of the navigation is 1001, and you'll see that as soon as I do that, we're able to, through the z index, manage which one is higher than the other one. Okay, so for right now, we're actually going to take this navigation menu, and we're going to do display none on it to make it go away. So you're seeing this menu on thing here. I'm going to give it some padding. Okay. All right, so now it's a little bit bigger. Now what I have for menu on, of course, you can put any icon there you want if you want to put a hamburger menu icon. But we're just going to keep it as menu on just for the simplicity here. Okay. All right, so now the next thing I want to do is I'm going to show you this little trick that we're going to use. And it uses an input checkbox. And an input checkbox you can assign a label to. So you can say a label is for this, we'll call this toggle menu. And we're going to have to give this an ID of toggle menu. Okay, so the idea here is if you give your input checkbox an ID, then you can specify that this label is for that particular checkbox. So I'm going to say this is going to be menu on. And you can see here that when I click on the label now, the checkbox gets clicked. So I don't have to just simply click on the checkbox. Okay, so this might seem confusing as to why we're doing this right now, but don't worry, this is all going to make sense really soon. We're basically going to use this checkbox here as kind of like our mechanism of knowing if the menu should be open or not. So you see how we have our label here and we have our div tag? All right, well, I just kind of wanted to ease you into this, but what if we changed it so that it was our label that has a class of menu on? Okay, so check it out. Now this menu on thing is what controls that checkbox. You see what I did there? Okay, so it's got the for attribute hooks up to the ID, class name menu on, so that way we can address it and stylize it over to the side. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to want to do is in our CSS. Before I get to the CSS, I want you to notice that the input field that has a toggle menu is siblings with the label and is also siblings with our navigation, and that's really important. Going down here, we're going to say at the bottom of all this, we're going to say that if toggle menu is checked, then let's stylize the adjacent sibling. So that's what this means. This means adjacent sibling selector. You know, normally when you see selectors like this right here, this means that foo is inside of this thing right here. But this symbol right here means that they're siblings of each other, and not necessarily siblings as in they're like right next to each other, but adjacent general siblings. That's what this is, the general sibling selector, which means it could be any sibling before the foo. Well, we don't want to address foo per se. We want to address the nav, primary, nav. Okay, so what we're saying now is that our primary navigation, when it is next to a checked checkbox, what do we want to do? We want to do display block. Okay, and when we do that, well, hold on a second. Looks like it's not working quite yet. Primary nav. Let's see, I must have done something very, that's because that dot's not supposed to be there because nav is an element. Okay, so now you can see when I check this box, that nav shows up. And I can also check on this menu on, which also controls this checkbox. Okay, so now what I can do is I can say that the toggle menu is display none. This is the checkbox itself, because obviously we're not going to check the actual checkbox. So see what's going on now is we can actually click on that menu thing and make this show up. But notice I've kind of programmed myself into a corner now because I can't turn it off. I can't actually click on that checkbox in the menu. The thing that says menu on is kind of behind us. So let's make basically the equivalent of like an off button or something like that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make a new label. And this label is going to be called menu off. And menu off is going to have a class of menu off. And notice that it also hooks itself up to our toggle menu. So if I save this, actually I don't have to save anything here on CodePen, but if I click on menu off is toggling this whole thing, and to tell you the truth, the menu off is is not just going to be able to turn it off, it's going to be able to turn it on, but don't worry, we're going to do some cool little tricks here. So we're not actually going to see this word menu off here, but you can see that it is working. Along with this one is also working. The only problem with that one, the menu on, is that it hides itself. Okay, so this menu off, what if I were to do this? What if I were to go up here, let's take away the actual word menu off. And so it's still there, it's just we can't see it because it doesn't have any content. What if I were to go over here and say that, let's see, menu off is going to be position fixed, and it's going to be, position fixed, it's going to be left of 0, top of 0. Let's just do a width of 100 pixels and a height of 100 pixels. Let's give it a background color of red. Okay, so there it is. That's essentially our off button. Don't worry, we're going to make it better. Don't worry. Okay, it's just we're getting there one step at a time. So the idea now is that we can click on menu on, which turns on our menu, and then we can click on this red area, which turns off our menu. Make sense? Okay, so what if we did this? What if we made, instead of red, what if we did RGBA? If you do this, you can specify a color like black, and then the fourth argument is how translucent the color is. So these first 3 zeros all mean black, and this is saying it's translucent. So there's our object. All right, so now instead of doing a width and a height, what if I were to say left of 0, top of 0, right of 0, and bottom of 0. Now check it out. It basically covers the entire page. So now what we can do is we want to specifically make sure that this is also very high up in the z-index, but not as high as our menu on. So the menu on is going to be, well, it's 1,000. So we're going to say that the z-index of this, is, we're going to use 1,000 here, and we're going to say that the menu is always 1,001, so that way the menu on is always right above it, which means we got to go down here and bump this up to be 1,002. So, 1,002. So the order of things is always the screen that we created, this off, big off button. I mean, it's an off button in the sense that you can click on it. I mean, this big gray area, check it out. I can click on it and see how it turns things on and off. See how I'm clicking out in this gray area? All right, so so that's like the lowest thing in this like 1,000 range, the index that we have, and then the next thing is this menu on, and the next thing high up or above that is the actual menu. Okay, so here's the thing: this menu off, we don't really want that showing all the time. We only want that showing if the menu is on. So we're going to go down here and we're going to say that toggle menu. We're going to say that by default this menu off is display none. Okay, make that disappear. Display none. I must have made a mistake. Oh, I got some stuff going on out here. Okay, so and then the toggle menu, when the checkbox is checked, then we're going to make the adjacent what was it called? Menu off is display block. And if you're not familiar, display block just makes, there's no like display on, there's just display none, and display block makes it show up. So now let's see where we are. We've got our menu on, let's click on it, there's our menu, and we can click away, and it goes away. Check it out. Can you imagine that you could have like a little hamburger menu thing there? Okay. So if you don't like this tinted area, you can get rid of it. Now we need this space to be able to click on, but there's nothing that says that space has to have a color to it. So all you have to do is get rid of the background color, and it's still there. All right, so I can click out here in the what looks like dead white space, but I'm actually clicking on that menu off. See that? And now if I click on it out here, there's nothing there anymore because it's display none, and it's only there when the menu's on. So right now it's there, and right now it's not there, but you can't really tell. So you have your menu, you can click away from it. If you're not familiar, you normally can't comment things out with 2 forward slashes in CSS, but this is particularly Sass, see the SCSS, so that's why I can do that. Normally comments, you know, look more like this, just in case I confused you just now. But let's take away the color altogether. All right, so there, we've got ourselves a little menu. Now what we need to do though is we need to make it so that if the viewport is really big, maybe we have enough space to do tabs instead, and we don't need any of this system that we just developed, this toggleable thing. So let's do that. Let's go down here, and I'm just going to write a regular old media query. I'm not going to do any of the special Sass media query mix-in stuff that I did in the last video, but if you want to see that cool stuff, you can check it out. Let's just do a simple media screen, and if the minimum width of the page is, we'll just say 500 pixels, just to pick any number that works for us right now, then we're going to do some work in here. So basically what we need to do here is, this is our desktop CSS, right? This is like if the screen is bigger than 500 pixels, and anything we do in here is essentially going to override anything that we did up here above. So we need to be mindful of that, and we basically need to unwind some of the fancy stuff that we did. So let's see, I would say in this particular mode, the what's it called, the menu on and the menu off need to be display none all the time. We're never going to need the off and on menu anymore when we're in the desktop mode. So another thing that we can do is we can say that the nav primary nav anchors, you see how the anchors are display block? That's what makes them like stack on top of each other. Let's make them display inline block. Okay, so now, well, our menu's gone. I don't necessarily know why our menu is gone right now. Probably because, oh, you know what else we need to do? We need to say that in all circumstances, in desktop mode, the nav, primary nav, is always going to be display block. Okay, so it's there. So now when we're in desktop mode, like we are, the navigation is just there. That's what we want. It's kind of hovering over things, so maybe we should take away the absolute positioning. We'll say, or the fixed positioning, we'll say position static, which is like the default. You know, everything is position static until you change it. Okay, so check it out. We've got ourselves a nice little desktop menu with some tabs, and as soon as the screen is smaller than 500 pixels, wait for it, bam, it turns into this style menu that we can click away from. So there you go. That's basically it.